This is an absolute heist for the Boston Bruins as new targets have emerged for Don Sweeney, and the Bruins may be one of the leading candidates in this race. We're going to be talking about that as well as a major draft update and a very interesting prospect that they are targeting. And of course, how Marco Sturm, the new head coach of the Boston Bruins, will really set these signings apart from what it was even just a few days ago. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video, going over why these moves are some that need to be made. Very quickly, before we do jump into today's news, however, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We're closing in on 7K subs, and your support has been absolutely incredible. We have so much news coming, though, and I know you won't want to miss it, so be sure to hit that button. Just over 60% of you guys have not done so already, but let's jump straight into it. I want to start off here with the draft before we get into Mason McTavish, because things are getting very interesting when it comes down to the draft, which is coming closer and closer as the days go by. And I want to pull up this first report that we have here, going over a quote and a bit of an introduction to a guy in Brady Martin, one of the top Bruins options at this very moment, and why he would be one of these better prospects. Martin brings a intense, physical, two-way game while also having excellent skill level. He is a potential top two-line center that Boston desperately craves and likes and plays the way the Bruins like. That comes from Corey Pronman. And now, as we look kind of at a guy like Brady Martin, we've been discussing just about every center so far that can be anywhere in the realm of a Bruins pick at 7th overall, going up, Caleb Denier. James Higgins is one that would be definitely a very lucky situation to get him. He is a bit high in this draft, and it really seems like now we're getting closer down towards this Brady Martin lineup kind of area of player. And when we go and look at what they have as Brady Martin here of The Athletic, they listed him as the 7th pick for the Bruins, and we're going to go over who's around him here in a moment, but Martin brings an intense physical two-way game, also having that excellent skill level, top two line, as Corey said there, and 6 foot center, 178, weighs pretty good. He's a medium-sized guy at center, something that the Bruins are looking for, a two-way guy, someone who's been able to keep up his points, as you see, for a two-way center. 72 points in 57 games with the Sioux is definitely a very good sign for someone that is known more for his defense compared to some of these other centers here in this draft. And at 18 years old, he is someone that the Bruins are really going to have on their eyes when it comes down to it. Now, as I mentioned, going around this area of the draft for the Bruins, when you're looking at this, Caleb Denier currently sitting at 6th to the Flyers. And you have Brady Martin, but after that, Jacob Ryan and Roger McQueen, two prospects that we've also spoken about here on the channel. Now, Brady Martin is someone who has certainly jumped up a little bit over these past few months now, going from around that 15 area to 7. I feel like this is one year that when we look at the mock drafts, nothing is really set in stone. I feel like there's so many moving parts. Even at number 1 overall, as much as it seems like Matthew Schaefer with the Islanders getting it, there's a lot of unknown. So right now, with Brady Martin sitting here at 7 and maybe even climbing more, we're still yet to see if he actually will or not. That's going to be interesting to keep an eye on from The Athletic, from these other articles and other companies bringing out their own mock drafts. Tankathon is the big one that everybody loves to go on, simulate a mock draft here, but Brady Martin is one that I would be very, very high on if the Bruins did go out and make that effort to go and get him. And we do have another quote here from Corey Pronman on the idea, kind of going over how this guy and what he brings to the table would really affect the Bruins here. This is what he had to say on the topic. An 18-year-old that isn't afraid to be physical and throw his weight around near the boards and in puck battles, something the Bruins have been missing, but Martin's skating could use some work. However, he could develop into a Swiss Army knife type of player the Bruins need, and many scouts believe he's the type of player that teams need if they want to make a lengthy Stanley Cup playoff run. Now, one comparison that we've been able to see, not just from him himself, but also just watching these two types of players play. Sam Bennett is a very good reminder, at least to me, of Brady Martin. I want to know what you guys think about that as well. Do you feel like that's something that you can kind of say? Not afraid to throw his body around, not the prettiest skater, but can definitely bring you into the situations that nobody else wants to be. And now without Brad Marchand, this is something that we're needing even more than we did not even 2 months ago. So let me know what you think about Brady Martin. Do you think that this is the right option? Of course, if someone like Caleb Denier drops down a bit, that's where you kind of get a bit of confliction there, where you might have to go and take them. But of those groups I talked about, Roger McQueen, do you think that we're looking in this direction towards Brady Martin? I want to know. I'm very, very curious to see what you think there. But when it comes down to it, as the coaching style changes now with Marco Sturm coming in, Brady Martin's game will have a big impact compared to what a Joe Sacco or Jim Montgomery would have brought in. But now when we're looking at a guy like Mason McTavish, who reports are saying that the Bruins are interested, this is something that would be an absolute steal, an absolute robbery for the Boston Bruins when it does come down to it. And I want to pull up this. McTavish, 22, is a pending restricted free agent this summer, and he's precisely the kind of player the Bruins should consider targeting with an offer sheet. If successfully brought in, he would give the Bruins a long-term notable boost at center, which is undoubtedly a massive need. However, he can also play the wing, so he could help the Bruins in this area as well. And Mason McTavish, once again, is kind of these players that are pretty similar to a Brady Martin style of player where, he's not as physical, but that Swiss Army knife can really do what you want. And McTavish, even though he's been playing a few years now with Anaheim, 76 points in 52 games this year, he still hasn't really seemed to catch on to what he should have already at this point. And the Anaheim Ducks are an interesting situation. They're not the greatest team. They will not be the greatest team for a while, and they have a lot of players who are really want out here. Another name is Zegras, who we've been spoken about here before, but Mason McTavish is one that I am much higher on, as I think he's a much better, well-rounded player here. I feel like that's the unanimous, the consensus decision across the NHL as well, that Mason McTavish is one of these better players. Now, looking at McTavish as well, as he is an RFA, and they spoke about an offer sheet, this is where things get a little bit tricky, because we know that the Bruins can use this as an offer sheet. They can also go out and try and make a trade. They have the assets to do all of this. Now, when it comes down to it, we're going to jump into the offer sheet possibilities here in a moment. At 6 by 6.7, I feel like that's a very, very underrated contract for a guy like Mason McTavish, who really has not even been close to reaching his peak yet. That deal kind of locks him up as well for a better cap than what he would be in just say 3 years' time at $4 million. Then you probably jump up to an 8 or 9 if he actually does get to where everybody thought he would be at this point in his career. And it does just seem like, anyways, that he needs a new change of scenery. And why not come to a team who has a new head coach, a new overlook, and are getting way better and way younger? That's a big thing the Bruins are really needing to consider here. And looking at these numbers and also how we can compare those to the offer sheets, there is some pretty useful things that we can take a look at here. Now, there are two considerations, and let me know what you think here in the comments below about these ideas. So one, you have the offer sheet. Just say, if you want a better chance at McTavish, getting him comfortably, something the Ducks likely wouldn't be willing to pay is probably around $7 million. And when you get that $7 million threshold, that's a first, second, and third round pick. All in 2026, all next year. The Bruins have all of them, as you can see on the right. Those are the teams who have each of those categories of picks. Then you go somewhere around, you can maybe try, a 6.9 million, an 8 million, even just a 7 flat. Those are when you give up a first and a third. And you have to consider now, would Mason McTavish require less assets to send him to the Bruins via a trade rather than an offer sheet? The Bruins would have to really take a look at this and consider which would be the better option for them when it does come down to trying to get him and the value of their assets going and coming back. So there is a lot of things to kind of think about here as this does move into a category where the Bruins have to make sure they're doing the right thing, where they don't want to waste their assets on players that they don't need just yet, even though McTavish is certainly someone that they need. He would fit well with what will be an Elias Lindholm, McTavish, and maybe a Brady Martin type of, 3 centers. That would really, really fit well, and especially being able to move McTavish off to the wing is something that the Bruins would love to have now with the pile of centers that they have that can also move to the wing, play wherever, and having those abilities, you can never have too many centers. It really is a good overlook on this. So let me know what you think about McTavish. Do you want to see, or what would you rather see, I should say? A trade, an offer sheet? What would you give up? I feel like there's some more stuff that will come out over the next kind of week or so as we head towards the draft, especially about what McTavish would really cost when it comes to the Ducks, because they could trade his rights. You never really know what they choose to do. I think the Bruins have a lot of options here, and this has been one name that we've been seeing a little bit more than the rest, and I hope we see more coming out of this here soon. And hopefully we do see a McTavish kind of a trade coming. I want to know what you guys think. I'm a big fan of him. Kind of seeing him play for Team Canada too. It's a bit special there. But so let me know what you think here in the comments below about all this news we have here today. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.